I destroyed my entire life in a single kiss. One moment of weakness behind a party venue cost me my fiancé, my friends, and my self-respect. This is Emma, and today I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything you think you know about love, loyalty, and the price of betrayal. Before we dive into this heartbreaking tale, I want you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever made a choice that changed everything? What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know your honest opinions. Meet Sarah, a 27-year-old woman who thought she had it all figured out. When her boyfriend Michael proposed after 2 years together, it should have been the happiest moment of her life. The ring was stunning, probably worth several months of his salary. She said yes because, well, it seemed like the right time. All her girlfriends were getting engaged or married, and Michael was everything a woman should want in a partner. He was dependable, caring, and responsible. He could fix her computer when it crashed and always made sure she got home safely. Sarah's mother absolutely loved him, constantly telling her how fortunate she was to find such a stable man. And Michael was stable, maybe too stable for Sarah's taste. He was the type who insisted they leave parties by 10 because he had an early morning, the type who planned everything weeks in advance. But here's where things get complicated. As Sarah planned their engagement celebration, she made a decision that would destroy everything. She insisted on renting an expensive lakeside venue instead of having a simple gathering at Michael's parents' house. During the guest list discussions, she did something that should have been a red flag to everyone, including herself. She added someone to the list that Michael didn't know much about. That someone was Derek, Sarah's ex-boyfriend of 3 years. Michael thought Derek was just some guy Sarah had briefly dated in college, but the truth was far more complicated. Derek and Sarah had been deeply in love, and their relationship only ended because he moved away for work, not because their feelings had died. Sarah told herself she was inviting Derek for closure, to prove to herself that she was completely over him. But deep down, she wanted to see if he still looked at her the same way he used to. The week before the party, Derek texted to confirm his attendance, and Sarah felt her heart skip in a way it hadn't for Michael in months. What started as innocent catch-up messages quickly became something more. Sarah and Derek began sharing inside jokes and reminiscing about their past relationship. If Michael had been texting his ex-girlfriend the same way, Sarah would have been furious. She would have checked his phone while he slept and demanded explanations. But somehow, she convinced herself this was different. By the time they arrived at the venue for the final setup, Sarah was a nervous wreck. But she wasn't nervous about hosting a party or celebrating her engagement to Michael. She was anxious about seeing Derek again after 2 years apart. What kind of bride-to-be thinks more about her ex than her fiancé at her own engagement party? Instead of listening to the voice of reason screaming in her head, Sarah reapplied her lipstick and practiced her smile in the bathroom mirror, preparing to see the man who could destroy everything. The first hour of the celebration was a blur of congratulations and ring admiration. Michael stayed by Sarah's side, proudly introducing her as his fiancé. Sarah smiled and played the part perfectly, but inside, she kept watching the door, waiting for Derek to arrive. When Derek finally walked in, Sarah's heart literally stopped. He looked even better than she remembered. Taller, more confident, wearing a navy shirt that made his eyes shine just like the one she'd bought him years ago for his birthday. While Michael was busy talking to his college friends, Sarah slipped away with the excuse of checking on the catering. She grabbed 2 glasses of champagne and approached Derek, interrupting his conversation with some other guests. Instead of introducing herself as the bride-to-be, she simply said she was an old friend of Derek's. That should have been her first major warning sign. "Congratulations on your engagement," Derek said, raising his glass. "Michael's a lucky guy." "Is he?" Sarah replied, immediately regretting how flirtatious she sounded. They fell into easy conversation about his new apartment, her job, and mutual friends. Sarah kept finding excuses to touch him, adjusting his collar, brushing imaginary lint from his shoulder. If anyone had been watching closely, it would have been obvious what was happening. Thankfully, Michael was busy being the perfect host across the room. Sarah's phone buzzed with messages from Michael asking where she was, that his mother wanted photos with them. She replied that she'd be there in 5 minutes, then ignored 3 more messages over the next 20 minutes as she and Derek talked about their old weekend trips to the coast. "I need some fresh air," Sarah finally said. "It's getting stuffy in here." The invitation in her voice couldn't have been clearer. Derek glanced toward where Michael was still taking photos with family members. "Lead the way," he said. Sarah navigated them through the crowd toward a side door. Her cousin spotted them leaving and gave Sarah a questioning look. Sarah responded with a cover for me expression that her cousin understood all too well. Sometimes women help each other with things they absolutely shouldn't. The cool night air hit Sarah's flushed skin as they stepped outside. The venue had beautiful landscaping with paths winding around to the back, secluded enough for privacy, but not so far that she couldn't claim they were just getting fresh air if anyone asked. "I wasn't sure I should come tonight," Derek said as they walked. "It's a little strange, being at your engagement party." "Why?" Sarah asked, though she knew exactly why. He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Because of how things ended between us. Because I still think about you sometimes." He stepped closer. "Because I can tell you still think about me, too." Sarah should have stepped back. She should have mentioned Michael's name, shown her ring, created some kind of boundary. Instead, she asked, "How can you tell?" "The way you've been looking at me all night," Derek said. "The same way you're looking at me right now." They had wandered behind the venue now, away from the windows and music. It was quieter here, just the sound of distant laughter and a nearby fountain. No one could see them, and God help her. That's exactly why she had led them this way. "Derek?" Sarah started to say, but she didn't finish because suddenly his hand was on her waist and she was leaning into him like a magnet she couldn't resist. And then they were kissing. It wasn't gentle or hesitant. It was desperate and familiar all at once. "I've missed you so much," Sarah whispered against his lips. "I can't believe we're doing this at my engagement party." Derek pulled back just enough to look at her. "Do you want to stop?" The right answer was yes. The honest answer was, "No, don't stop." They were so lost in each other that they didn't hear the footsteps approaching until it was too late. Until a shocked, hurt voice cut through their private moment. "Sarah, what the hell is this?" Michael stood there, jaw clenched, eyes moving from Sarah's smudged lipstick to Derek's hand still on her waist. In that moment, seeing the pain wash over his face, reality came crashing back. Sarah had just destroyed everything. "Michael," Sarah gasped, stepping away from Derek like she'd been burned. "It's not... I mean, I can explain. But what explanation could there possibly be for kissing your ex behind the venue at your own engagement party?" "Michael, please," Sarah said, moving toward him. "It was just a kiss. It was a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything." Even as she said the words, she knew how hollow they sounded. "A moment of weakness," Michael repeated, his voice eerily calm. "At our engagement party, with your ex-boyfriend." Sarah heard herself saying, "You've been so distant lately. Always working, barely paying attention to me." "Stop," Michael cut her off, holding up his hand. "Just stop." He looked at Derek, really looked at him for the first time. "Were you invited or did you crash this party?" Derek looked uncomfortable. "I was invited." Michael's eyes snapped back to Sarah. "You invited him. Behind my back." Sarah couldn't answer. She couldn't defend herself. "I don't know you at all," Michael said quietly. Then he turned and walked away, back toward the party, leaving Sarah standing there with smeared lipstick and the sudden, sickening realization of what she had just done. The rest of the night was a disaster Sarah had to smile through. She returned to the party alone, heart racing, searching the crowd for Michael. He was nowhere to be found. His mother cornered her by the dessert table, asking where he'd gone. Sarah mumbled something about him not feeling well, maybe food poisoning. She spent the next hour making excuses for Michael's absence, accepting congratulations with a fake smile that made her face hurt, all while texting him frantically. No response. Derek had wisely disappeared too, but not before slipping Sarah his new phone number on a cocktail napkin when no one was looking. She tucked it into her purse, hating herself for keeping it. Around midnight, as the party finally ended, Sarah's friend offered to let her stay over. Sarah accepted, not ready to face whatever waited at home. As they left, she noticed Michael's cousin watching her with knowing eyes. Word would spread quickly. Sarah woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and 12 missed calls from her mother. She ignored them and drove home, rehearsing apologies the entire way. She would cry. Easy enough given her hangover. She'd promise it would never happen again. She'd suggest couples therapy to show how serious she was about fixing things. But when she unlocked their apartment door, the silence hit her like a wall. Michael sat at the kitchen table, still in last night's clothes, looking like he hadn't slept at all. The engagement ring she'd left on the nightstand was sitting in front of him. "Michael," Sarah began, her voice breaking. "I am so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. It didn't mean anything." He didn't look up. "Who else knows about you and Derek?" "No one. I don't think anyone saw us except you." "So you've been hiding this from everyone? For how long?" "What?" "No. Last night was the first time anything happened." Sarah lied, conveniently forgetting about the weeks of flirty text messages. He finally looked at her. "I checked your phone last week, Sarah." Sarah's blood went cold. "You went through my phone? You had no right—" "Don't," he cut her off. "Don't try to make this about me invading your privacy when you've been texting your ex behind my back for weeks." Sarah felt cornered. Those were just friendly messages. Nothing happened until last night, and that just got out of hand. "Stop lying," Michael said, pushing back from the table. "Just stop. I need time to think about us, about whether there can even be an us after this." "What are you saying?" Panic rose in Sarah's throat. "I'm saying I don't know if I can marry someone I can't trust." He stood up, grabbing a duffel bag Sarah hadn't noticed by the door. "I'm going to stay with Jake for a few days. I need space." "Michael, please." Sarah grabbed his arm. "Please don't go. We can talk about this. We can fix this." He gently removed her hand. "There's nothing to talk about right now. You made your choice last night behind the venue with Derek." As he walked toward the door, Sarah called after him. "It was just a kiss. People make mistakes." The door closed. She was alone with the ring on the table and the terrible knowledge that it had been so much more than just a kiss. It had been weeks of betrayal in the making. 2 weeks crawled by. Michael came home after 4 days at Jake's, but it felt like living with a stranger. He slept on the couch, left for work early, came home late. When they did talk, it was like walking through a minefield. Sarah tried everything. Cooking his favorite meals, wearing the lingerie he used to love, crying, pleading, even suggesting couples therapy. "I think therapy is a good idea," Michael said, which surprised her. Their first session was a disaster. The therapist, Dr. Roberts, asked why they were there. "She cheated on me at our engagement party," Michael said bluntly. "It was just a kiss," Sarah interjected quickly, "with an ex who I hadn't seen in years." Michael's eyes narrowed. "You invited him, Sarah, and you'd been texting him for weeks." "Those texts weren't inappropriate," Sarah lied again. She turned to Dr. Roberts. "I had a momentary lapse in judgment, but I'm completely committed to Michael and our relationship." That night, as Michael slept on the couch, Sarah found herself texting Derek. Nothing explicit, just checking if he was okay after everything. He replied immediately, asking if she wanted to meet up. She told him she couldn't, that she was working on things with Michael, but she didn't block his number like she should have. The next morning, Michael asked if Sarah had been in contact with Derek since the party. "No," Sarah said without hesitation. "Absolutely not." They attended 3 more therapy sessions. Things seemed to improve slightly. Michael even moved back to their bed, though they didn't touch. Sarah started to believe they might actually survive this. Then came the morning she left her phone on the counter while showering. She came out to find Michael holding it, his face a mask of cold fury. "You've been texting him this whole time," he said, his voice frighteningly calm. "While we're in therapy, while I'm trying to forgive you, you're still lying to my face every single day." "Let me explain," Sarah began, clutching her towel. "Those texts aren't what they look like." "I can read, Sarah," Michael shouted, making her flinch. Michael never shouted. "You told him you missed talking to him. You told him things were complicated with me. You asked if he was seeing anyone." Sarah had no defense. He was absolutely right. "The wedding is off," Michael said, setting her phone down. "We're done." "Michael, no!" Sarah begged, grabbing his hands. "Please, I'll block him right now. I'll change my number. Anything." "It's too late," he said. gently extracting himself from her grip. I've been trying so hard to trust you again, and you've been lying to my face this entire time. I made one mistake, Sarah cried. Are you really throwing away 2 years over one mistake? Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. One mistake? You invited your ex to our engagement party behind my back. You've been messaging him for months. You made out with him at our engagement party. And you've continued talking to him while swearing to me you weren't. That's not one mistake, Sarah. That's a pattern of deception. After Michael left, weeks passed in a blur. He came by only to collect his belongings, always when Sarah was at work. She'd come home to find another empty shelf, another blank space on the wall where his photos had been. It felt like he was erasing himself from her life piece by piece. Sarah started texting Derek more regularly. What was there to lose now? They met for coffee, then dinner, then back to his place. But it wasn't as exciting as she'd built it up in her head. The chemistry was still there, but something felt wrong. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was knowing what she'd sacrificed to be sitting on his couch. Over the next month, Sarah constructed a narrative where Michael was the unreasonable one. He couldn't forgive one mistake, she told friends over wine. He went through my phone, she emphasized to her mother, conveniently leaving out what he'd found. Some people just look for excuses to run when things get real, she told her sister, who gave her a skeptical look but said nothing. Sarah started spending most nights at Derek's place. It was easier than being alone in the apartment with all its memories. But Derek was exactly the same person she'd broken up with years ago. Fun but unreliable, charming but self-centered. Then came the night she saw a text pop up on Derek's phone while he was in the shower. It was from someone named Jessica. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Don't be late this time. When Derek came out, Sarah confronted him. Who's Jessica? He looked startled, then annoyed. Did you go through my phone? I saw the text when it came in, Sarah said, ignoring the irony. Are you seeing someone else? Derek ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. Look, Sarah, we never said we were exclusive. The floor seemed to drop out from under her. What? I mean, you just got out of a serious relationship. I figured you wanted to keep things casual. You knew I left Michael for you, Sarah was shouting now. Derek took a step back. Whoa, no. You cheated on Michael with me and he dumped you. That's not the same thing as leaving him for me. And honestly, that whole situation made me a little wary of getting serious with you. The irony was like a slap in the face. So what? I'm good enough to sleep with, but not to date? That's not what I said. But if we're being honest, the way you handled things with Michael doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Sarah grabbed her purse and jacket. Screw you, Derek. Sarah, come on. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. Don't contact me again, she snapped, slamming the door behind her. Driving home, tears blurred Sarah's vision. She'd lost Michael, and for what? For Derek, who'd been seeing someone else the whole time? The full weight of her choices was crashing down on her. She tried calling her friend Lisa, but it went straight to voicemail. Then she tried calling her cousin, same thing. Finally, desperate for a friendly voice, she called her old work friend Amanda. Sarah? Amanda answered, sounding surprised. Everything okay? Not really, Sarah sniffled. Can I come over? I really need to talk. A pause. Actually, I'm not home right now. I'm out. Something in her tone made Sarah suspicious. Out where? Another hesitation. At Jake's place. We're having a game night. Jake. Michael's friend Jake. Is Michael there? The silence on the other end was answer enough. Amanda, please, I really need a friend right now. Sarah, I'm sorry you're going through something, but Michael told us what happened. It's a little uncomfortable, you know? Sarah hung up without responding. So that was it. Not only had she lost Michael, but she was losing friends too. They were choosing sides, and they weren't choosing hers. The next few months were a slow-motion collapse. Work became a disaster. Sarah had been so distracted by the drama with Michael and Derek that she'd missed critical deadlines on a major project. Her boss put her on probation, a humiliating first in her professional life. Her lease was ending, and without Michael's half of the rent, she couldn't afford to renew. She had to find a smaller place in a worse neighborhood, another step backward. Friends continued to drift away gradually. fewer invitations, shorter responses to texts, last-minute cancellations. She heard through mutual acquaintances that Michael had started seeing someone new, someone nice, someone trustworthy. The final blow came at her cousin's birthday dinner. Sarah hadn't wanted to go, knowing she might see mutual friends who'd taken Michael's side, but family obligations won out. She arrived late, hoping to minimize awkward interactions. As she approached the restaurant, she saw them through the window, Michael and a pretty brunette at the table with her family and friends. They were all laughing at something she'd said. Michael had his arm around her, looking more relaxed and happy than Sarah had seen him in months, even before the engagement party disaster. Sarah froze on the sidewalk, watching. Her mother spotted her through the glass and waved her in, but she couldn't move. Michael followed her mother's gaze and saw Sarah too. Their eyes met briefly before he turned back to the conversation, his expression unchanged. Sarah was just another person to him now. No anger, no hurt, nothing. That's when it hit her, the full, crushing reality of what she'd done and what it had cost her. Not just Michael, but her reputation, her friendships, her self-respect. She'd been so convinced she deserved more excitement, more passion, that she'd thrown away someone who truly loved her for a fantasy that had evaporated like morning mist. Sarah turned and walked back to her car, texting her cousin an excuse about feeling sick. As she drove home to her empty apartment, past the life she used to have, past the future she'd destroyed, the truth she'd been avoiding for months finally broke through. This wasn't Michael's fault for not forgiving her. It wasn't Derek's fault for being Derek. It wasn't her friend's fault for choosing sides. It was hers. All hers. But even as that realization washed over her, the old defensiveness flared up. If Michael had been more exciting, more attentive, she wouldn't have been tempted by Derek. If Derek hadn't texted back, nothing would have happened. If her friends were really loyal, they'd have stood by her regardless. The cycle of blame continued, even as she sat alone in her diminished life, faced with the undeniable consequences of her actions. She'd created this reality with her choices, her lies, her refusal to take responsibility. And now, she had to live in it, watching from the outside as everyone else moved on without her. The karma she'd earned had finally arrived, and it was absolutely merciless. This story shows us how one moment of weakness can destroy everything we hold dear. Sarah thought she could have it all, the security of Michael and the excitement of Derek. Instead, she lost both and so much more. The saddest part? Michael was a good man who deserved honesty and loyalty. He tried to forgive her, tried to rebuild their trust, but Sarah continued lying even during therapy. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. What do you think? Was Michael right to end the engagement? Could Sarah have done anything to truly make amends? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with friends who might learn from Sarah's mistakes. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with more compelling stories like this one. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Remember, the choices we make in moments of weakness can define the rest of our lives. Choose wisely. Until next time, this is Emma, and I'll see you in the next story.